And we're back. This is the Stevie Hockey Experience. And this is episode number, what is this, Michael?
Number 6.
5?
Number 6.
Number 6. And that is my producer, Mike Clark. And we have a return guest today, Mike Clark, because I think I told you this already, but I only bring back the guests that I really like and that I enjoy talking. And that's why I brought back our guest today. Now, twice published author of books related to the New York Islanders, and that's Nick Hirshon. And first of all, thanks for coming back.
Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate
having you again. This has got to be a whirlwind time for you. You're a busy boy right now. When we last talked to you, it was kind of like the calm before the storm. You were really kind of getting everything together, and now the book launch is now come and gone. I mean, how's it? I guess what I'll ask is, how's it going? How's the book launch been?
Well, like you say, it's kind of been a whirlwind. The book came out on Saturday, December 1st, which is the same day as the Islanders returned to Nassau Coliseum. So it was just a kind of wild day because I was going to the game and the book was coming out. And before the book came out, for the last few weeks, it's just been lots of publicity, lots of media requests, which is all really fun. I'm about to start doing a whole series of book signings. My first is coming up tomorrow, Saturday, December 8th. So it's just been a lot of wild, media whirlwind stuff, and then a lot of outreach from fans. A lot of people contacting me on Twitter and Instagram and everything. It's been a lot the last few days.
But I'm sure it's all good though, right? Everything's been good, and I guess as good as you can hope for, because I'm sure it's very hectic. I've never published a book, so I'm asking you because I seriously don't know how it goes. But yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of everything you hope for, right? Because you spend so much time working on a project like this. And this one took me about a year of solid research and writing. But before and after that, there was a lot of work involved too, the beginnings of the research, and then finding a publisher for the book, doing the promotion. It takes a very long time. This has been a part of my life since pretty much 2014 or so. So to finally see this come to fruition and get some attention from Islanders fans, which is really what I was going for, is not an academic audience, even though this started as my doctoral dissertation at Ohio University. And then have all the media attention. Today there was a story in the New York Post. There was a write-up in Newsday. I was on a 1010 Wins podcast. Peter Schwartz had me on his CBS, New York Sports Day podcast. I mean, there's been a lot of different, interviews to do and all that, but it's been great. That's exactly what you want.
And not only is it good for you, but kind of by proxy almost, it's also good for the Islanders because it gives people another excuse to talk. The team's doing unexpectedly better this year, but in talking about your book, it also gives you and everybody else a chance to talk about the Islanders.
Right. I think that a lot of what I found when I published my previous book that you referenced about Nassau Coliseum in 2010 is that the success of any book about the Islanders is going to be predicated on how well the team is doing at the time. Because when the team is losing, no one really wants to talk about them, and they're just already wishing for a spring training if you're a baseball fan or some other sport to start up. You hope the Knicks and Nets are doing well. But when the Islanders are doing well like they are right now, at least unexpectedly doing better than people had thought at the start of the season, people just become more interested in their history, and then reliving some of the sadder parts of their history, more depressing parts of their history, like I was covering in my book, 95, 96, 97, when they weren't winning a lot and the team was in turmoil off the ice. I think that it's a little bit easier to stomach that when the team is doing well in the current day.
Absolutely. And before I get to the rest of my questions, you were at the game at the Coliseum. Was that not unbelievable? Was that just an unbelievable night? I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
It's just everything that Nassau Coliseum is. I mean, that's the reason why I love that building. It's the reason why I wrote a book about it, why I love to return to it, why I go to so many games and other events there, even in the off season. I like going to Nassau Coliseum. The electricity in that building, especially when the Islanders are doing well, the sound of the "Let's Go Islanders" chants, On Saturday night, the sound system wasn't working so great in the building. And so throughout, when they were announcing who scored a goal or any sort of announcement, it was kind of breaking up, but the fans made up for it. And they were doing the, woo and the yes, 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 and everything throughout the night. It really felt like it was a homecoming, and that's where this team belongs. So they belong on Long Island, and at least for the next few years, hopefully they'll be playing a majority of their games there. It was just a dramatic come-from-behind victory. It had pretty much every element you were hoping for from that night.
It was a playoff atmosphere, I thought. I mean, I went to a couple playoff games, and I thought it was just like that. Felt like Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, especially, going down to the wire, up 3-2 game, third period. I mean, it was just really, it was everything you could have hoped for. It was unbelievable.
Yep, and started early with the tailgating in the Coliseum parking lot and the fans gathering outside the Marriott. And I mean, all of it is just what I loved about that building when I first started going to games, even though there wasn't a huge fan contingent back in 99, 2000 when I started going. The team was really bad. But I think now, since the Islanders have left and they spent the last few years at Barclays Center, fans now have a greater appreciation for what they lost. And they realized it was coming. And when they played their final games there in 2015, I think people realized, we really are missing out here. But it's sort of nice to see that the fans have such an affinity for it. I was surprised to see they're now even selling Nassau Coliseum-themed merchandise at the concession stands there. I've never really seen that before. I remember thinking they should have been doing it for years. But I think they were selling Rock the Barn T-shirts, and that's very important. And, of course, to the nature of my book, they're starting to sell fisherman jerseys there again, which is a kind of cool coincidence.
I was just going to bring that up. Did you plan that? Did you kind of coordinate this to coincide with your book? Because that couldn't have worked out any better for you.
Some things are just serendipity, right? I woke up that morning. I think I forget if it was on that Friday. I think it was before the Saturday game. And the Islanders had announced, hey, fans, if you come to Nassau Coliseum tomorrow, you're going to be able to buy a fisherman jersey at the concession stands. And it was surreal because I've talked to so many people about how the Islanders had kind of whitewashed that from their history for so many years, didn't want to have any sort of a signifier of the fisherman era anywhere in the arena. And now they're going to selling it at the games again. So it was a slow march towards this. 2015, they wore the fisherman jersey during warm-ups, or at least the fisherman logo on a reimagined kind of jersey in warm-ups. And then they started giving away the jersey as part of a group sales promotion. You buy 10 or more tickets and you get this kind of mesh fisherman jersey. You start to see a lot of the players wearing the fisherman logo on their masks. Thomas Greiss was doing it. Yaroslav Halak used to do it. So I think that it was kind of slowly getting back into the pipeline there on Long Island. And now, it's kind of crazy. Once again, the fisherman jersey is for sale at Nassau Coliseum.
I mean, it's good for you also that the demand was there for them to bring it back, because it means that there's also interest in your book. I mean, that's got to be, again, it's got to be great for you, because seeing people wanting to buy this stuff, that means that they're going to want to buy your book as well.
Well, and I knew that for the last few years when I was going to games. Pretty much for as long as I've been going to games, because I became a fan in 1999. And I was always seeing people wear those jerseys, because jerseys are expensive. You buy a jersey in 95, you think, oh, Ziggy Palffy's going to be on the team forever. And, you start wearing it at the games. And then even when they get rid of the fisherman logo, you're still going to wear it. So I've been seeing that in the stands for years. And I knew that there was going to be that kind of fan support. And then when social media came around and you could kind of see, starting with Twitter in 2009, 2010, and I started getting involved in Isles Twitter. And, you just knew there was a real younger generation of fans who started to become curious about that logo as I did and wonder what's the big deal about it, and who kind of detach it from all of the historical events that happened in that era and just view it as, this is retro, this reminds me of the 1990s.
Yeah. I think that it's good for the team as a whole to embrace that part of their history, because, they have the dynasty and they have a lot of these great moments. But as we touched on last time you were on, it became the representative of a very, very bad, depressing time in the history of the franchise. You know, they didn't embrace it for a long time because everybody hated it. But now I think it's kind of like they're embracing that period of the franchise, because I think enough time has gone now where you can get more perspective on it. And we came through it and came out the other side. And, you know, I think that it's good for the franchise to show that they're embracing it now, because it is, look, for better or for worse, it's a part of the Islanders' history, right? So, I mean, if you're going to, you know, embrace all the dynasty and all the good times, I think that you should also remember the bad times, because I think it helps people appreciate the good times even more.
And I think that we forget a lot of people do have positive associations from that period. They did win some games. They did have some really good players, and I mentioned Ziggy Palffy earlier. But that's why people still wear those jerseys. If that was when you were coming up, if those were your first games as an Islanders fan, then you do remember taking your photo with Niles the mascot in the stands or on the concourse. And you do remember seeing Ziggy Palffy get on a breakaway, or Tommy Salo make a save, or Matthew Schneider score a goal from the point. And those sorts of things are still embedded in the memory of lots of Islanders fans who are now coming out of the woodwork and, you know, supporting my book, which is amazing, and I really appreciate that, and kind of demanding that the team bring back this logo in some form. It's going to make money for them. It's something, it's just kind of like a no-brainer. Why not bring it back? As you say, enough time has passed. There's nobody associated with that rebrand, that doomed rebrand, who's still involved with the team. So what's the harm in bringing back this logo?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's anything that's going to make especially if it's going to make it's a win. It's a win. The only thing, and I heard some people on social media talking about this too, they were disappointed in the quality of the jerseys. They were Fanatics jerseys, and they didn't like that they were, you know, the real Adidas jerseys, you know, or like the CCM jerseys that they had. Like, they were disappointed that they didn't have a better quality of jersey, and it's so expensive. I mean, it's expensive too. It's like, you know, $165. It's not cheap either. But that was probably one of the only criticisms I heard of that. I mean, for the most part, people have been really open to it, and it's good. But, you know, it's got to make money, so it's gonna, you know, it is what it is. So today, you were written up in the Post today, I saw.
Yeah.
Which is, first of all, I mean, that's one thing I did not know about. They spoke about the Billy Joel connection and in all of this. I didn't even know. I mean, I guess I kind of knew. But explain where Billy Joel kind of fits into this whole thing?
Well, when the Islanders were rebranding and they started this process in 1994 after they had lost to the Rangers in the playoffs, and obviously the Rangers go on and win the Stanley Cup, their first in 54 years, ending the 1940 chance. And the Islanders are starting to think, what can they do to differentiate themselves from the Rangers? And they go back to what is a common depiction of Long Island, and they bandy about all these different ideas of animals that are native to Long Island and the maritime culture of Long Island. And one of the things that they focus on is, well, Billy Joel is from Long Island, and he's very popular, and not just happens to be from Long Island, but he's very much associated with that. He plays all these concerts at Nassau Coliseum. He alludes to Long Island in a lot of his songs. So Long Island embraces him, vice versa. And around this time, his song, The Downeaster Alexa, which was about struggling fishermen on Long Island's East End, that song had come out a few years earlier. So they're thinking, well, maybe we could pick up on that imagery. And what depicts Long Island, the seafaring culture? You look at a fisherman. And that's kind of how they settled on the fisherman as being the key icon of this brand. Of course, I think they were going to probably consider a fisherman anyway. It's just a natural kind of a fit. But the Billy Joel connection and maybe the hope that he would get involved in the rebrand and actually come to the press conference where they unveil the logo, go to a bunch of games and add his cachet. So even if the Islanders aren't doing great, but you're like, we're going to see Billy Joel in the front row at all the games. And maybe that does get people more excited, or they decide, let's buy some tickets because we can have a chance, maybe get a photo with Billy Joel or get his autograph or just see him in the flesh, which a lot of Long Islanders would value. So yeah, he had a role in this rebrand that I was very surprised to find about myself when I started doing this research.
And if I'm not, I mean, was he? I guess I'll ask you, how receptive was he to all of this? I mean, I heard that he didn't really like the logo, the fisherman logo, and the whole scheme and all of that. Is there any truth to that?
My sense is that he never really was that involved, and that the Islanders reached out to him, as they have many times for different efforts over the years, and that he pretty much always politely declines. Not that he says, I don't like the jersey, and so I'm not going to support this silly fisherman logo. I just think that he has other projects going on. He has a brand and image to maintain. So I don't really know what his personal opinion is of all of it. I bet there was probably not even so much thought to his saying I'm not interested in going. But that is a whole segment of Long Island's population, right, who just aren't hockey fans. So I think he kind of represents that.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment, I think. So I mean, I wanted to ask you, when you talked about when they were considering the different logos and designs. Do you know if there was anything else that they were trying to do? Were there any other concepts that were floated about, or was the fisherman kind of the main one? Because, I mean, you hear about how logos get created, and usually it's one of maybe 6 or 7 concepts that are floated about. Was there anything else that they were considering besides the logo that eventually became the fisherman?
Well, it sounds like they went through a whole bunch of different ideas of what would represent Long Island, and whether it is, again, animals that are native to Long Island. And at one point, they even entertained the kind of ridiculous notion that dinosaurs were once native to Long Island, maybe like 70 million years ago. But they talk about things like a duck. And I actually thought that might have been a good idea either for the mascot or for the logo, because you think of the Long Island Ducks, which is the semi-pro hockey team that used to play out at the Comac Arena, elsewhere on Long Island in the 60s and the early 70s. So they were the predecessors to the Islanders. And also, of course, I think of the Big Duck, the landmark attraction in Flanders, the roadside attraction. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But also, there was a problem there because the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim just came into the league not long before. So you'd have a little brand confusion there, like, oh, we have a duck on our jersey or in our logo or whatever, our mascot, and that would just cause confusion with the Mighty Ducks. There's some talk about crabs and seagulls, and I guess anything else that you'd associate with beaches and that sort of lifestyle. And they really can't come to anything. One of the discussions that I described in the book is that there's really not one definitive symbol of Long Island. And there's one New York Times article from the period where they're saying if you think of different cities, there's an immediate image that comes to mind. If you think of Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell. And if you think of Florida, it's palm trees. If you think of San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge. Long Island doesn't really have that one definitive major landmark that everybody knows from out of town. We have different things. We have Joan Beach Tower, and we have Roosevelt Field, and different sorts of things, and Nassau Coliseum itself, but probably not one thing that if someone came from out of town, they'd say, oh, I really need to go to Long Island to see the XYZ. So that was kind of what they were left with. And the closest thing they had, they want to, again, be different from the Rangers who play in the big city, who aren't at all associated with fishing. So Long Island has a fishing culture, although it's certainly not something that everybody who's from Long Island knows about. So that's what they ended up going with.
I can't believe that they considered dinosaurs for that's like the Toronto Raptors almost. I mean, that's kind of like that blows my mind. That's like the Jersey, the Nets almost changed their name to the Jersey Swamp Dragons. It kind of reminds me of that. That's just like wow.
I don't even know if that was kind of a silly suggestion. And, it's obviously a dubious suggestion of, well, what differentiates us? Well, dinosaurs used to roam Long Island, but dinosaurs roam like everywhere. So that's not really something that's special. And I think it was also, as you say, the Islanders are trying to pick up on this idea of a cartoonish logo that'll appeal to kids because they're going to tell their parents, I really love that mascot or I want that jersey, and they're coming off the Toronto Raptors logo. So yeah, it's kind of a natural, like, oh, dinosaurs are big, right? This is the whole era when Jurassic Park is in theaters and all that stuff. So I can see that being a very brief, momentary idea, but there was nothing else that really definitively made the case for this is Long Island. When you look at this image, you say, oh yeah, that's the Long Island that I know.
So, I mean, if you ask me, I think the whole idea of changing the logo was dubious, but I mean, it was what it was. I don't think I asked you this last. I noticed that the foreword of the book is written by Eric Fischel. How did that come about? How did you end up going on Eric Fischel to write the foreword for the book?
Well, it started when I was trying to figure out who I would interview, and I made an Excel spreadsheet and just listed every single guy who played for the Islanders, all the Islanders executives, broadcasters, different people who were involved in the rebranding process that I wanted to get a hold of, designers, and Eric was obviously among them. And so I reached out to him at the TV network that he's a part of in Canada, and he said he'd do the interview. We talked for a long time. I thought he was very pleasant to talk to, a very charismatic guy. And I had known a little bit about him, just had heard his name bandied about previous times I'd been to games at Nassau Coliseum and such. And after thinking about, well, who would I get to write the forward? You usually want somebody who is good to deal with, who's going to be pleasant, but also has a little bit of cachet, somewhat of a social media following, a high profile. And since he's still involved in TV analysis, and he's one of the few Islanders from that period, from those 2 years that they were wearing the jersey, to be involved in that kind of a high profile role, he just made a lot of sense. And it was terrific. I mean, I think that if you read his forward, you get a lot of emotion from it. You get another perspective because we know it as fans. And so from our seat in the Coliseum, we're thinking these guys are losers and how come they can't win? And then they're wearing this terrible jersey. It's a mockery. And we forget sometimes, well, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are far from home and they miss their parents and they're trying to learn. In some cases, they're from other countries. They're trying to learn new diets, new cultures, new languages all at once as they're trying to then compete against Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux in the same league. So I think that he gives you that kind of idea. And they're growing up. They're guys who maybe they forego college or they leave college early to take a chance on an NHL career. So they're kind of like just big kids who are being viewed as adults and all of a sudden making a lot more money than they probably ever expected, dealing with Mike Milbury yelling at them, all of these other sorts of things I described in the book. So I think he made for a great forward contributor. I'm really glad that we were able to connect.
That's awesome. I mean, was there a guy that particularly stood out for you as wow, I didn't expect that, but that guy was really awesome?
I mean, honestly, since I didn't follow the team in this period, I knew the names of a lot of these guys, but I had no idea what they were like. I'd never seen them be interviewed before. I had never seen most of them play. I think the only guy I actually saw play was Nicholas Anderson, who was on the Islanders still when I was a fan in '99. I remember him being part of that CIA line with Tim Connolly and Brad Isbister for a while. But it was mostly just, I was excited to get a chance to interview people like Darius Kasparaitis, who I knew not for his time with the Islanders, but being on the Rangers and other teams, the Penguins. And he's a very honest guy. Most of the people who I spoke to, Mick Vukota, Rich Pilon, Tommy Soderstrom, Travis Green I spoke to before he became the Canucks coach. A lot of them just sharing just great, very non-diplomatic in some cases, very honest sort of views of what happened. Brian Smolinski was really fun to talk to, and Robert Reichel. So these were, guys who I'd only seen their names in articles from the period, and I started my research by going through all the old Newsday articles and the game programs. And so when you read that much about these guys, and then you're suddenly on the other end of the phone from them, it feels like this is awesome. I can't believe that I got this guy and he's actually willing to talk to me and share his memories. And I also took that as a great responsibility, because now maybe this is the only person they've ever told that story to. I want to make sure I work it into this book so that story doesn't become forgotten with time.
Yeah, I mean, I've met a couple, and the players that I meet, I mean, they've all seemed to be pretty great. I mean, hockey guys seem to be the nicest, most down-to-earth, I think, athletes that you could ever hope to meet. And I don't know why it is. I guess maybe it's the brutality of the sport that makes them humble, or maybe it's because they come from, rural, most of the time rural Canada. I mean, it's just that they seem to be the most down-to-earth, nicest people that you could talk to. And I think that it's great that you were able to talk to so many of them for this book, because it's like you said, it helps to tell the history and tell the story in much greater and richer detail.
Yeah, I think I ended up speaking to 23 guys who played on one of those teams, either 95, 96, 96, 97. And I think, and I've wondered the same thing. Why are hockey players so easy to talk to and so gentlemanly and giving of their time? I feel like part of the reason is because a lot of them weren't making a ton of money. I mean, they were making good salaries, but compared to if you were to interview guys who were playing in that era in Major League Baseball or the NBA or the NFL, they were probably making a lot less unless you were a true top star. And I just think some of it goes to how they were raised. I mean, we hear a lot about the culture in Canada and in Europe about, just be a hard worker, be nice to everybody you meet, shake hands, wear a suit to the game, wear a suit out of the locker room. And so I just got that very respectful kind of vibe from them. And it was really a treat. I mean, every time that I got another confirmation that someone from that era was going to talk to me, I really took it seriously. I valued all of their time. I know that for a lot of them, this was not a very positive experience because of the team losing and some other things that were going on off the ice. For a lot of them, they were traded very suddenly, seemingly arbitrarily by Mike Milbury. And there was a lot of emotions that are tied into that. So people are reliving things that weren't very positive for them. And I just appreciate that they were willing to do that with me, as someone who they didn't know anything about.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, and you know what else? I think it represents the Islanders pretty well, too, as an organization, to see that they have some great young, not young men anymore, but great people that have come at it through this organization, even at its worst time. I think it ultimately reflects well on the organization as a whole and in this region, because, like you said, the adversity they had to deal with was not something that I would wish on anyone. And they all seem to be really, really excellent guys. And I think that it reflects on the Islanders, and I think it reflects on Long Island as a whole. And I think even your storytelling, I think, is a reflection on Long Island too, because you understand, you really know where it's coming from, and I think that all of that really enriches the experience. I think it's the whole thing is great, honestly.
I really appreciate that. And when you're talking about what happened with the players, I mean, that's why I dedicated the book to the players. I think it says to the players who wore the fisherman jerseys or played for the New York Islanders from 1995 to 1997, because I appreciate what they went through, the fact they put their bodies on the line for Long Island, all of the emotional turmoil. And for me as a fan, you're saying trying to capture what was going on. I have that passion for the team. As I was writing this book, I kept thinking about the times I've been in the stands, wanting to tell those kinds of stories, knowing that there were stories to be told, even if sometimes the Islanders don't get as much media coverage as I think they should. I don't think they ever really have. Growing up, I was in a household that didn't have cable TV until I was older, and so I couldn't follow the team on TV. So it was basically listening to Chris King and Jim Cerny do the radio broadcasts, which came in a little bit scratchy sometimes, depending on what station it was, because I was living in Queens and they were out on Long Island. And then it was reading Newsday and mostly going through the Alan Hahn stories or whoever else was covering the team in those time. And the other papers, really, they would cover the Islanders here and there. I think the Times usually would have something on them. The Daily News and the Post, it kind of depended on how the team was doing. So it was hard to get any sort of information about them. And that's why some of these stories from 95, I don't know if they've ever been told before. I don't know if anyone's even asked about them before, because the Islanders always kind of get short shrift. It's amazing to me that given their history, which has been so glorious, of course, with the 4 Stanley Cups, but also has had so many down periods that have been epic and very interesting, I'm kind of amazed that there hasn't been more written about the Islanders, because it seemed like this was a ripe story to tell. I'm glad that nobody told it before, because that left it open for me. But I also really take that seriously. The Islanders fans are kind of this fun subculture. People who I think appreciate the underdog mentality and really support that team, like we were talking about when that game happened on Saturday night, and why I'm so thrilled to go to so many more of those games. There's a lot of love for this team from my end that went into the book, and I think you can hear it from the players that even though they went through a lot, the jersey, Mike Milbury, John Spano, everything else, I think they still have a lot of love for Long Island and Nassau Coliseum.
Well, I think you definitely found a niche, because we as Islander fans are so underserved by the media in general, but also in book writing. And I think we touched on this a little bit last time too. There really aren't a ton of books out about the Islanders. So anytime something like this happens, it's an event, because it's a spotlight being shown on our little, our team, our little, neck of the woods, if you will, and it's something that I think is great. I think it's, again, I can't just this whole thing I think has been. Can't imagine what it's been like for you, but it's been great for me. Just the fact that there's a book being written about the Islanders, and it's it's going out, and it's fantastic. I just think. Have you given any thought to what you're going to do next, or is it too early for that?
I've certainly given thought to it, and I've gotten that question a few times, and I keep thinking, and I kind of will, almost throw that back at you or the fans who listen to your podcast and say, I've been thinking about different times in Islanders history. I don't really like writing the story that everybody else has been telling, and although I have a lot of respect for those dynasty teams, I was not alive when they were winning those cups. So I don't really know the kind of institutional history that I think you would need to really do a good job of telling their story. And there have been other books like Birth of a Dynasty that have come out about them. I'm interested in the kind of Islanders of my youth. And so, again, 1999 on, when you're doing history, it helps to have some distance between the time. So you don't want to, for example, do a story, a book about what just happened in the Barry Trotz era when it's ongoing. And even the Mike Milbury era, it's so recent that he left the team that it's probably not time yet to really look back on it. We don't yet know how that's going to long-term influence events. But I do look at like those early teams of my youth from 99 to 2000, 2001, and that was a time of great change because a few different ownership groups, just like what was happening in this Fisherman era. But you had the Gluckster and Milstein ownership group, which was in charge when I first became a fan. And then, of course, Charles Wang, who unfortunately just passed away, and Sanjay Kumar coming in to run the team, which was viewed as this bright beacon when they first came in. I still remember being excited when they made the trade for Roman Hamrlik and, all these sorts of guys they were signing in that era. And then, of course, the next season when they start getting Alexei Yashin and Michael Pekka, Chris Osgood, Mark Parrish, all of those guys who got them to the playoffs in that great series versus the Maple Leafs. I was at the Sean Bates penalty shot game. So that moment means a lot to me. It's probably the best sporting event I've ever attended as a fan. I just love it. And I can't talk highly enough about it and the energy in the Coliseum. I think that if I wasn't already hooked, which I was, but that really, really hooked me to Islanders hockey. I have to think about that era and really those times when they weren't doing so well. I keep going back to that 99-2000 season, seeing if there's something there. Besides the Islanders, I'm a fan of the Mets, and I've thought about doing a book about them. But again, you don't want to be the millionth person to do a book about the 1969 Mets. who are going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary next year, or the 1986 Mets, or anything else like that. I think it also is a little bit tougher because those guys are maybe harder to get in touch with, to get them to tell their stories than Islanders players might be. So, yeah, I mean, again, I asked you very welcoming ideas from fans, and I'm going to probably at some point dive back into the archives. In between, I do research on some other sports, and I like to call myself a sports media historian in New York City. So the Islanders are certainly a big part of that, have been the biggest part of that. I think it's maybe in the next year or two, I may work on some projects relating to other teams or sports. But I'm always going to come back to the Islanders. They have such a hold on me, and I think they've been a fascinating franchise.
I would, if you really want to hear my suggestion, I would love to hear about the first 2 or 3 years of the franchise, when they were an expansion franchise and they were absolutely terrible, and set the NHL record for utility. They had, they ended up getting the first pick in the draft, and they were still bad the next year. There's got to be a lot of great stories, I think. There was a bunch of guys that came through too, that the first 2 or 3 seasons, and then went, to go from a terrible team to, in '75, going 1 win away from the Stanley Cup final. I think that those first 2 or 3 years, I think, could be a gold mine for a potential book, because, I mean, those are kind of the things that get kind of lost in time. And I mean, who wouldn't want to hear about the birth of the Islanders and hearing about that, that first, the first steps, if you will, on this amazing journey that this team is. Because, I mean, they had so many characters. Spinner Spencer played for them too, I think. And, Eddie Westfall and guys like that, the Potvin brother. I think that there's a lot of good stories there, I think.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that suggestion. Again, for me, I think what I hit with the Fisherman book is that this was kind of the perfect time to do it, because 1995, it's just long enough ago that I think we kind of know what has happened since, and we can kind of evaluate its place in Islanders history and sports history, branding history. But it's not so long ago that we've lost all the sources. And all of those guys who I want to get in touch with from that era, they're all alive. They were all able to talk to me. All of them hopefully seemed healthy and well. And unfortunately, if you're going to go back to the beginning of the franchise, right, a lot of those guys may not be around anymore. And we've lost Bill Torrey recently, lost Al Arbor. I don't know about all of the other players. And some of them certainly are still around. But it's also, for me, it has to be a project that's kind of like a labor of, like, I can associate with the 90s because I'm, a 90s kid. I grew up in the 90s, and a lot of my memories, and we were talking, this week, there's so much news coverage of President George H.W. Bush, who we recently lost. And I remember him being president when I was growing up. And so this whole era in Islanders history, all these sorts of things remind me of, Bush, Clinton, and all this kinds of stuff from when I was a kid. And for me, that's a big part of doing this research. It can't just be a kind of cold, calculated, I'm just going to write this because I think this book will make a lot of money. It has to be, I really, really want to tell this story, and I can't believe no one else has done it. And I'm going to be a detective and find all these sources. And we haven't even talked about, obviously I did the interviews with the players that I've mentioned, but a lot of microfilm research, going back to old school library research, reels and reels of microfilm of Newsday, and then getting online the New York Times and the Post and the Daily News, looking at the old TV broadcasts at the MSG Networks archive in Manhattan, getting old game programs from fans and old, issues of the Blade, as they called it at the time, fan newsletters from the Islander Insider, the Seventh Man newsletter, that Art Feeney and Tom Croak were involved in doing from the Support the Islanders Coalition, the Save the Islanders Coalition before that. So I just love, and the story that is almost a challenge. The nation is all over. You have to have that kind of detective work to put it together.
I mean, that's. I think whatever you do, I think it's going to be great. But, I mean, that's a suggestion for me. I don't. Anyway, how did MSG open their vault to you?
Yeah, they're very nice to do that. And I went in there in the summer of 2015 and was able to look at some of the old Islanders broadcasts from Sports Channel, because Sports Channel later was gobbled up by MSG. So they did all of the Islanders games in the 90s, and I was able to get some stuff. Most of the footage, honestly, that I used for the book, almost all of it, is from the stuff I've just found on YouTube. And that's really where pretty much everything that you see in the book is from there. But as part of this process, I did get to go to MSG. I also have a friend who worked at WPIX Channel 11 in New York City, and he let me into their archives so I could see some of the old news broadcasts. How were the news anchors covering the Islanders at that time? I just wanted to get a hold of anything where the Islanders were being mentioned in this era, and kind of, put myself in a position I want the most thorough look possible. What were the TV sports anchors? If we were to be watching the 11 o'clock news on the night after an Islanders game in 95 or 96, what were they saying about them? Were they even mentioning them? Were they making fun of the jersey or Milbury or Spano? And so I want to be as exhaustive as I could, which takes a lot more time, frankly, and a lot more work and effort, energy. But to me, then, when I hold up this book, I really think it's something I can be proud of, and that I hope that Islanders fans connect with, because they know I was doing this for years, trying to put together. Other people kind of rush through books, and they get out a product that maybe is interesting enough. But this, if you go through the back of it, you'll see I footnote all of the book. It did, again, start out as an academic dissertation. So you see every single source I used, all the different articles and trademark forms from the Islanders Fisherman logo, and all the game programs, the TV broadcasts, everything else, in addition to the interviews. So, it really kind of all comes together. I don't think that you could just interview a few of these guys and then say, I'm going to write a book about it. You want to do it holistically.
I mean, the fact that you're so passionate about it makes a whole difference, I think. It really does. I guess, is there anything that didn't make it into the book? Is there any like tidbits or anecdotes you just didn't have room for, or maybe didn't have time for, maybe? Was there anything that you'd left out? Maybe you wanted to share?
Not really. I mean, of course, every now and then people will tell you some personal asides, things that are off the record, but that was very, very rare. For the most part, everybody told me this is on the record, and anything that they told me, that I thought was important, I put in there. I had a lot of freedom with how I put this together. I alone constructed the narrative for the book. I didn't have to get approval from the Islanders, to be clear, or from any of the players. No one saw this manuscript before it came out besides the editors at University of Nebraska Press who put it out. No, I mean, it was pretty much if I heard a good story, and there are some real zingers and wacky stories from what Mike Milbury was doing, and again, the whole decline of John Spano outed as a con artist, the former owner of the Islanders. I put him in there. There were a few times when people told me rumors that I did not feel comfortable including, and I didn't put in any sort of a rumor. If there was something where people told me something and then I could try to go back and verify whether that really happened, I did that, and that comes from my background as a journalist, because before I decided to become a journalism professor, my position now, I'm a professor at William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. It's about 20 miles west of New York City. But before that, I was a reporter for the New York Daily News, and I went to journalism school. I went to the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism. I believe in doing thorough fact-checking, trying to turn over every stone to see what's underneath there, and trying to include everything. So, there were some times when people said they just made, they told me some sort of a rumor about what was going on at the time that I think would be irresponsible for me to even repeat to you for this, and certainly was not going to be something that was going to end up in my book, because I didn't want to just put anybody in an awkward position. I realize this is a delicate topic for a lot of the people involved, and I don't want to make fun of people like, for example, Ed O'Hara, who was the co-founder of the design firm SME that put together this logo. They're a terrific firm that has done amazing work for pretty much every team in almost every major professional sport, and they just happened to do this clunker, which even then I don't think that they're entirely responsible for this, because it was one of many, many different logos that they apparently submitted to the Islanders, and this is just the one that the Islanders picked. But I'm sensitive to the role that they played in it. Certainly the players. I don't mean to mock them. Some people have seen the title of the book, "We Want Fish Sticks," maybe think it's a book for Rangers fans, because that's a chant that the Rangers fans use. But obviously, I come from this perspective of, no, I just want to tell Islanders history. I hate being called a Rangers fan. That's one of the worst things you can call me. This is all born out of love for the Islanders.
Now, did you have any contact directly with the Islanders over the course of trying to make this book? Or did they know about it during the development, or was there any back and forth with them at all?
Not really at all. I don't know if they knew anything about it. Maybe word filtered out, because I contacted so many different players and former coaches and things, and even a few people who were working for the team until very recently, like Howie Rose and Chris King, who's still doing the games and all of that. So they probably heard about it at some point, but maybe they also thought, just a guy writing a book, and who knows if it'll ever see the light of day. It could end up just being an academic project that doesn't get published. But no, honestly, it just didn't make much sense to go to the Islanders, because I know that they don't have a big archive of information. And what I did do, and places that were really useful, was going to the NHL Alumni Association and the NHL Players Association, trying to get a hold of some of these guys who have fallen off the map a little bit, who played for the Islanders in that period, because they all scattered. And I guess a few of them may be in the Long Island area, but for the most part, they're in Europe, they're in Russia, they're in Canada, and some of them were hard to track down. They're college coaches or minor league coaches elsewhere in the United States. So I relied a lot on, these are people who I thank in the acknowledgments of the book, but a lot of the public relations staff of these minor league or college teams who helped me get in touch with these guys. And and that's really how it went about.
That's really interesting. I can't wait to read this book. I gotta say, after talking to you once, I was already sold. And
well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna try to get to one of your book signings one of these days. I think so. I'm hoping to actually meet you in person eventually. I can't. I just what you're doing is just so phenomenal, and I think it's great.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you saying it, because again, that's the thing that kept me going. There was so many nights that went to 1 a.m., 2 a.m. later at the library by myself. It's very lonely when you're doing the research for a project like this, and then when you're doing the writing. And there's just a lot of work. Transcribing all these interviews, which was such a pain, hours and hours of my life that I won't get back. It's fun doing the interview, and then when it's over, it's like, oh man, I got to transcribe it or prepare for the interview. Of course, you got to prepare what questions you're going to ask. So what was driving me through all of that work was people like you, thinking, but I really want, Stevie or Mike or somebody to, be settling into their day on Long Island, before they go to a game or whatever, and say that this is really fun, and this is something that, it's the best book about the Islanders I've ever read. And that was my goal. I want to write the best book that's ever been written about the New York Islanders, this team that I love, that is such a big part of my identity, and why I just have so much respect and admiration for Long Island and all of those experiences out there that are so fond to me. So I really do appreciate all those words, and for sure, I'd love to meet you. someday. If we've spoken a few times, and it would be really great to put that face to the name. And I'm going to so many upcoming games where I hope I see fans, and all of these different signings that you mentioned. My first one is tomorrow, so I'm curious to see what happens there. But there's going to be a whole ton of them. I'm going to be at the Offside Tavern. I'm going to be at the Cradle of Aviation Museum on Billy Joel night, right before they have the Billy Joel game. I'll be there signing books, which, of course, the Cradle of Aviation is very close to Nassau Coliseum, so you can come there before the game. And then I just have all these other ones set up for Manhattan, Queens, Long Island. I really do hope that people come out, tell me their stories. I've already gotten so many cool emails, direct messages, Twitter, Instagram. I love hearing it. So again, for your listeners who are maybe wanting to reach out, they're not sure, it doesn't bother me. To the contrary, I eat it all up. I love to hear about that kind of stuff, and I hope to meet a lot of them.
I mean, to make it perfectly clear, to people who are listening, you reached out to me to get on here. So, I mean, if you didn't say anything, I don't know if I would have even had you on, because I didn't think that I'd be able to. But I mean, that was actually what blew me away, was that you actually even reached out to me in the first place. So well, yeah. I thank you for doing that, though. I love talking to you. I really thank you for doing that.
Oh, no. Well, and I thank you for having me, because, again, when you spend this much time on a project, I know you can't have probably a 17-hour podcast, but, man, I could talk your ear off for that much time or more, because it was, thousands probably of hours of research and writing, and it's a story that I just love to tell. So I'm very glad that you give me an outlet to talk about it and ask informed questions about it, and just have that passion of an Islanders fan who I was writing for and who I am. So I kind of connect on that way. And yeah, it's the great thing about this kind of thing. I hope it does develop into, maybe I'll have some more friends now when I go to these games at Nassau Coliseum. Maybe, I've already made, some friends in the Islanders Booster Club, and just random people I didn't even know were Islanders fans who live near me, or maybe friends of mine who I didn't realize that was part of their past. They were a fan long ago or something. And that's what's so great, when your research really resonates, and it's not just something where you publish a book, you do one signing and then you go home and you work on the next one. I really want to get this out here. I'm really proud of this. I think it's something that people will enjoy, and I want to scream from the mountaintops that I hope people will give it a shot. Buy the book. I think you'll enjoy all those great stories in there.
Well, I'll tell you what. As Islander fans, I think I said this last time too. We're all family. So when you have another Islander, if an Islander fan sees another Islander fan on the street, it's like seeing your brother or your sister or an uncle or something like that. I mean, I think that we're that close because there's so few of us. I think we're so close knit that we really are all like family. And what you've kind of, with the Coliseum book and then this book, you really kind of represented that, and you've become to be a representation of that. So you're one of us. You're one of the family. So it's good. It's nothing but love from here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for writing the book. I can't say it enough how great it is. To the fact that you even wrote it, and I can't wait to read it. Mike Larkin, are you still with us?
Yeah, dude. I'm just producing, just checking levels. You guys have been doing your thing.
I noticed that, Nick, before you go, I'm sure that Mike Larkin has a couple questions for you. I noticed that more signatures on your program, and I thought that you want to talk about that, the wrestling stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
with my producer.
I did see the Shane Douglas when he was with the WWF at the time, Dean Douglas, former ECW, WCW star. You got Chico, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, and you got Mr. Backlund, Bob Backlund himself.
Yeah, this is really fun. So this has been another little side project for mine that also connects to Nassau Coliseum, because for my 10th birthday party, my parents took me to Nassau Coliseum with some of my friends at the time, and we saw a WWF show, as it was called back then, before it was WWE. And I've been going around collecting all the autographs. I guess I may have spoken to you guys about that on a previous podcast, or you've just seen it on my Instagram page. So it's been really fun to kind of go around and try to collect the autographs of the guys who were on that card, because I recently found that card, which I thought was lost. And I said, wouldn't this be fun? Kind of a neat way to track these guys down. And they do all these different autograph signings, different places, which is another kind of subculture. We're talking about the subculture of Islanders fans, but wrestling is the same. And it's just something that, brings a lot of positivity into people's lives and is just lighthearted and fun. So getting to meet Razor Ramon was really cool because I totally remember watching him, Saturday mornings on TV as a kid. And meeting Bob Backlund was an experience because he is very loud and boisterous, and he grabs a hold of you. He put me in a headlock. And let me tell you, you could really feel like I felt his body, against mine, and it is threatening. I don't know how old he is at this point, but I assure you he could take me on, and he could pin me very easily. Running into all of these guys, and a lot of them, when I show them that card, they start to remember everything because, most people are bringing them some sort of a glossy photo that was just printed out recently. And I'm bringing them this treasured card of mine from 1995. And they just keep talking about all these, different stories of, the matches that they were in with those guys. So it's been really cool.
I think that's what's great about it too. Is like I saw that photo, I laughed because Bob Backlund does a lot of those photos where he'll put you in this infamous cross-faced chicken wing and just watch and just the face because just how he does, and just Bob is another one of those influential characters, 80s, 90s, what have you. You look at guys like Razor Ramon, Scott Hall with the NWO and WCW and the Monday Night War. So you got a card from a hell of a time period that really influenced wrestling history.
And it's funny because at the time I'm sure I knew nothing of that, Mike. I was watching wrestling, as a kid. I was probably watching it like once a week when it was on free TV and never watching any pay-per-views or didn't even know, I'm sure, that WrestleMania existed at that time. But now going back, and now I'm more of a wrestling fan. I follow it, much more closely than I ever did back then. But yeah, it's kind of cool just to think like, hey, I saw Triple H when he was Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 1995, and I saw Kane when he was Isaac Yankem.
Oh, DDS. God, yeah. Isaac Yankem DDS, yep.
And, and a bunch of these other sorts of guys who were listed on there. And, unfortunately, when I actually saw Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, just a few weeks ago, he took a look at my card and he was signing next to Kevin Nash, Diesel, and he pulled him over and said, look at the names on this card. And then he was talking to me. He said, there's like 8 or 9 guys on here that have passed away. And these are my friends. These are guys who are my age or younger than me, and they're gone. And I thought that was really interesting for him to say that, and to it really obviously struck him. And Owen Hart is on that card among the other people who have unfortunately, passed away. But it is, it's a piece of history. It's a piece of Nassau Coliseum history, which is my thing. I just love the Coliseum's history. So I thought, hey, collecting a few of these photos and, putting it all together. I got Bret Hart to sign the program because he was part of that era too. It's just kind of cool to put it all together and someday frame it up and remember this other part of my Nassau Coliseum past that doesn't have to do with anything on ice.
And I think I'll put this in the description as well because, Nick, I know you saw it. We were talking about it. Homie, if you didn't see it, I'll let yourself and the listeners know. So New York Islanders will host a WWE-themed Isles Mania game night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York when the Islanders play the Vegas Golden Knights. You got a pre-game discussion with Mick Foley and Sergeant Slaughter, as well as Bobby Roode talking about the evolution of WWE in New York. And that's a special Isles Mania t-shirt and a 200-level ticket to the December 27th WWE SmackDown Live event at the Nassau Coliseum. It's going to be fun going forward with Isle Mania, so if anybody wants to take a look at that, maybe purchase tickets. And Nick, I'll put the description to your book in. Just all Islanders, man, just show you some love in this.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys have been great, very supportive, and a lot of the Islanders fans, again, have done that for me, and it's great. I did it for all you guys, so it's great to feel some of that love back.
Well, I guess also before we close, dude, I know you got We Want Fish Sticks. The Facebook page is up and running, so promote your social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9. Let them know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Nick Hirshon, NickHirshon. I created a Facebook page, as Mike just said, for the book that is simply We Want Fish Sticks, so just put that in your Facebook search bar and you'll find it. And I'll be promoting all of the events. I think it's now 6 or 7 signings that are coming up again across Queens, Long Island, Manhattan. Too many to list right now, but they're all up on my Twitter account. I released the other day a trailer for the book. So books don't often have this, but I actually created a little movie-like, preview-like trailer. So you can see some of the images that I saw as I was going through this footage of, the old Sports Channel stuff and the Newsday front pages, Milbury is hired, all this kind of thing, to kind of give you a sense of what's inside the book. And I've been even running like contests on Twitter. Retweet this tweet about We Want Fish Sticks and you'll have a chance to win some hockey tickets. And I've already given away 2 pairs of tickets to different Islanders games in the last few weeks, and I'll try to do that a little bit more. I love social media too, and I'd love to connect with all you. Every now and then I get new messages from my new Islanders friends. So for sure, slide to the DMs, do whatever you need to do if you want to, get in touch and talk about the book, talk about Islanders history. I'd love it.
What's just give us your Instagram and all your social media handles and all that. Again.
Yeah, Twitter and Instagram is at Nick Hirshon. That's NickHirshon.
Okay. And Facebook is the same thing, just Nick Hirshon.
Yeah, Facebook I have a page, but I really mostly have it right now for We Want Fish Sticks. So if you just go on We Want Fish Sticks on Facebook, you will find the page, and I put up a lot of the media coverage of the book, podcasts like yours, the New York Post article, Newsday did a piece a few weeks ago by Andrew Gross, and any other thing that's going on. I have some stuff I can't announce yet, but in the next few weeks there should be a few more big media appearances, I'm hoping, and all of that stuff. If you want to stay up to date, best thing with the signings that are being announced all the time and the media appearances and all that stuff, just go on the Facebook page, go on Twitter. That's really where I live, at Nick Hirshon on Twitter.
Tell you what, this is exciting. I gotta say, I can't imagine what it's like for you, because this is exciting. It's exciting for all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you so much for coming on. We really do appreciate it. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
It means a lot. And
the treat, yeah.
We definitely would love to have you back again anytime. And best of luck. I actually mean best of luck for the book. I say best of luck to people sometimes, and I go, yeah, best of luck, whatever. But I actually mean it. I actually want this book to succeed so badly, because it comes from a personal place, and the Islanders are second to none in my heart, and I know they are for you. And I think that anytime you get a spotlight like this on them, you want it to do so well. And I know you're a fantastic writer. I'm sure it's going to do great, and I just hope you get everything that you want, because it does mean a lot to us as fans, giving us a voice. We don't always, and I know we don't always have a large voice as Islander fans, and this is kind of a way to get our voice into the ether. And again, I can't thank you enough for writing the book and doing what you do. And again, I hope to see you at some games. I'm going to come to one of the book signings, and let's go Islanders.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go Islanders, and this is all going to be great. Thank you so much for all those positive words. They're always great to hear. And for sure, I hope we can connect soon, and soon we'll be tailgating together and hanging out after the games and all that good stuff. It'll be great. Hopefully this will be a season to remember for the Islanders, not for the sorts of reasons that were in my book. Hopefully it doesn't end like the 95-96 season does, but hopefully it looks like they're certainly on the right track. And so this will be a fun time to celebrate with all the fans out at the Coliseum.
We could use a storybook season, right?
For sure.
All right. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Take care.